Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of how to build a social network in Wix, the non-coding founder's guide. So we're at a little bit of a different style of video here because I really make sure to stress the importance of planning a website before you build it. So I'm going to take you through the process of doing exactly what I would do when building a website. So we're learning how to build a social network. And in today's video, we're going to focus on the database side of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan out our user group and the different databases we can think of right off the bat right now when we're starting this social network type website. So before we get into things, it's important for me to stress a couple important points here. One, we are going to build a website similar in style and in functionality to Twitter. Now, we're not going to get as extreme, as crazy as Twitter has. But we're going to build the basic layout and the basic functionality of being able to create a profile, post statuses, like statuses, direct message, those type of things, same as Twitter. Now, the other important thing that I need to tell you is, some of you may be watching this video and saying, well, I'm not building a social network. If that's not you, what I need to stress is that this series has more than just building a social network. We're learning valuable Wix Code lessons. This series was originally built to teach a bunch of Wix Code tutorials because I know how in high demand they are and how much you've requested them. So what I would ask is join along in this series and take the points from each part of the series that we go through that will apply to you and your website. I will tell you that we have a couple other series coming up, but they will follow this Building a Social Network in Wix series. So let's hop right into it. So first, right off the bat, we're building a social network similar to Twitter. So what are our user groups? Well, we have really one main user group, and that is users themselves. So on social networks, we're going to have a couple different groups depending on the style of social network. You look at Facebook now, and they've got so many different types of groups, so many different dynamics because they have business pages, groups, regular everyday users. But you look at Twitter, something like Twitter, it's a little bit more simplified in the aspect of who's on the platform. It's users. It's strictly users. So we have to take into account what type of databases we're going to set up for our users. So let's draw this out a little bit. When we know our target market here is users, right? We've got our users right here. But then what we need to do is we need to identify, okay, what do these users need to be able to do on the website? What access are they going to have? What type of functionality will they be able to use? So when we're building this website, there's a couple different functionalities we need to think of, design and functionality. The first is, well, we want our users to create a profile page. We want them to be able to create a page, edit the profile information, edit their profile picture, and put information onto their page. So the first one is profile pages. Okay, so profile pages is step one. That's the very basic form, right? So when you get onto a social network, 100% of the time what you do is you get a profile when you sign up. The other thing we need to look at is a social network is full of social activity. You're posting stuff to the network. It's social media. You're posting media to the website. So the next aspect of this is statuses, posting statuses. So we're going to go ahead and say statuses. When you get a social media account, you usually follow other people, and what you do is you see that information in the feed. So we have to have something to put into that feed, and that's where the statuses come into play. The next thing we have here, I do have a handy dandy little sheet over here to my left, is something in addition to statuses is image uploads. So we want to post more than just text to our social network. So we're going to post a couple different styles of things. In this case, we're going to have two different styles. We're going to have your regular text type statuses where you write out text and post it, or image uploads. So we're also going to have image uploads. We'll We'll just put images for short. So now after we have our profile pages statuses and we know we're going to have image uploads, we also need to have a system to be notified when something happens on a status that we post. So we often refer to these as notifications. So we know we're going to need notifications on our social network. We'll go ahead and write notifications. Okay, so now we have a user that signs up, builds a profile page. When they build that profile page, they can either stay there, stay stagnant, and just follow people and read other people's statuses, or they want the ability to post a status of their own, post their own update, post their own status, post their own picture. Perfect. We got to that step. Following that step, we want those people to be notified when something happens on their status. If someone comments, if someone likes their status. So we want notifications built in as well. On Twitter, you often see this referred to as liking and retweeting. Also quoting. So commenting is quoting on Twitter. So we're going to, again, build a light version of Twitter here. So we have these different statuses. We have our notifications, profile pages, and the next thing we need is also what I just said, a liking system. So we need to build a liking system into this site. Okay, so we have our liking system. After our liking system, we need to build in a commenting system to also back up that whole liking and commenting notification idea. So we want a commenting system. Okay, so we have our liking system, commenting system, and those are technically part of notifications, but at the same time we can't necessarily classify that. It's classified under the entire scope of what we're trying to do. After our commenting system, we also need to build in a follow system, but that's a little bit more complex. We're gonna really focus on the database side of things today. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write it in here, and I'm gonna go through and at least put the ones we know right off the bat. So follow system is next. You want to be able to follow someone and then get their statuses, their feed of information that they post. So anyone you follow, you get their statuses and their images that they upload. So we want a follow system. And then the last thing we're going to write on the board in this video as far as planning goes is peer-to-peer messaging, so also known as PM or DM, direct messaging, private messaging. Either way, we want to have that on our list as well because this is going to be a separate database as well. So we're going to have here, we'll just call it P2P messaging. Okay, so this is a basic outline of the different functionalities and pages we're going to need on our website. So most, if not all of these pages will be something called dynamic pages. Well, in order to display information and pull information onto a dynamic page, we need databases. So what I really want to stress and show you in this video is the setup of databases that we're going to need. So we're going to start with everything we've mentioned here. We know off the bat that profile pages are going to need their own databases because profile pages are a separate entity of some of the other things we have here. Profile pages are where people are going to create their profile, upload their image, profile image, maybe a header image as well, their name, their email, their maybe @name or follow name if we're going to do that. I haven't decided quite yet. And then also their about information and all of that great information. But we also want them to be able to edit that information or delete that information at any time. So we need a separate database to host all of the profile page information. So we'll just call this database 1. So after we've got database 1 here that houses profile information, we need a separate database for our statuses because when someone posts a status, we need them to be able to post it, and that information will be stored in a separate database because it'll be stored on a separate dynamic page known as our feed page. So our feed page here will house information from database 2, and database 2 will house all of the status updates that anyone on our website comes in and posts. So statuses and images will go together on database 2, since statuses may contain images in there. They're going to coincide and go together. So we're going to go in here and we'll connect them, and we'll call this database 2. So now we've got database 1 and database 2 for profile, pictures, statuses, and images. Notifications. So notifications are going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have to show you guys as we go through the series how we're going to do some of these things. As I said, this is the non-coding founder's guide. However, there are going to be very minimal amounts of coding and a few little lines here and there. Notifications are going to be part of this. So right now in the planning phase, we're going to say, okay, we're not ready to move on to notifications, so we're going to say TBD next to it as far as databases go. To be determined. Because I will carry through notifications when we get to that point in the series. That'll be a little farther down the road after we go through the series and build out profile pages, build out statuses, build out feed pages, build out image uploads. All of that fun stuff will be done before we get into notifications. The liking system and commenting system are going to be similar. However, for the commenting system, we are likely going to need a separate database to house comments, and we're going to use reference fields to reference them back to the original status post. Now, I know this is confusing, but we're not going to focus on that in this video. What I will tell you is we're going to call commenting system here database 3. So database 3. That kind of looks like it too. Database 3 right there. And for our liking system, we're also going to put TBD. To be determined, because again, we're going to use a little bit minimal amounts of code and use that to build our liking system. If we continue down our list here, we have our follow system. Once again, not going to focus an emphasis on this one. We're going to put TBD on the following system. And then finally, we have our peer-to-peer messaging. What I can tell you off the bat is this is going to be a complex part of this series. It's going to be cool because really there hasn't been many websites done in Wix where you can actually create a direct messaging system, homemade, from scratch, custom built. But I'm going to show you how to do it. The only thing is we're going to have a high emphasis later on in the series. This will be one of the last things we do in this entire series. Again, there will be one video uploaded per week, and this is going to be towards the tail end of things. What I can tell you is we definitely will need a separate database to store private messaging. So for right now, we're just going to put database 4, but we may get into more complex databases. We may need a couple databases, but I'm not going to stress that too much yet. So we're going to put database 4 here. Okay, so now we have all of our tools to properly say, okay, here's our users. Here's what our users need to be able to do on the platform. They need to create profile pages. They need to be able to post statuses. They need to receive notifications based off of whatever happens on their statuses from other people. We need a liking system so that way people can like certain statuses. We need a commenting system so people can comment on those statuses. We need a follow system so people can follow other people and receive different status updates in their feed. And then finally, we need a peer-to-peer direct messaging or private messaging feature that allows you to message someone else that you follow or don't follow. We'll have to set the parameters there and send messages back and forth to each other. This is our basic layout of what our light version of a simple Twitter is going to look like. So this is the information we need to know. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this video here and I'm going to head into Wix and show you guys the actual setup and database creation of Wix. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build this site from scratch with you in Wix. So I'm going to show you my step-by-step. What I am not going to show is I might not show every single piece of design that I do. So I'm going to show you all the functionality, but when it comes to the overall scope and feel of the design, I may not show you every aspect of that. But I will show you how to connect the design that you create and that I create to all the functionality that we're building here. So let's hop right into Wix and show you how to actually go about setting up these databases and setting the correct permissions right off the bat. So that way we know, okay, this user has access to do this, this, and this in this database with this information. So let's hop into Wix and go ahead and start that. Hope you guys are enjoying. Welcome to part 2 of part 2. So I just explained to you guys on the whiteboard our whole planning sequence and planning out the databases from the user groups. Obviously, we discussed profile pages, status updates, image uploads, liking system, commenting system, follow system, and a peer-to-peer messaging system. So we discussed a lot of different things in our planning phase. Now, we're not going to go through all of those things in one video because, man, that would be one long video. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take you guys from the start of the process, which is picking our template, which right off the bat, guys, we're building from scratch on this one. We're going to go with Wix's blank templates here, and we're going to go start from scratch and press edit. So now that we've got our template up, here's what I'm going to do for the remainder of part 2. I'm not going to go through and build out the fields in each database that we need because that would take, one, a large amount of time for the time we've already spent in this video. I'm going to save that for another reason because when we build out the fields, I really want to correlate that with our dynamic pages. So we're going to save the building out the fields and dynamic pages for part 3 of our building a social network in Wix, the non-coding founders guide series. We're going to save that for part 3. So in this video, remember the remainder here of part 2, I'm going to actually just go ahead and set up the databases we already know we need and set the permissions up on them with you. So we can see here the Wix Code developer tools were activated as soon as we came onto the website. If you are just getting on a website and you're ready to go design and you're not ready to add the tools and the functionality in yet, to deactivate them, come up here to code, and if you hover over it, you could just turn off developer tools just like that. But in this case, I'm going to turn them on. So, like I said in the previous whiteboard part of this video, the design portion of this entire process, of this entire series, I'm going to kind of do in the back end along as we go. You guys are going to see me incorporate some design into it. There is going to be a design. Like, it's going to be fully designed, fully functional. But I may not show every single element of design that I do. What I really want to stress in this series is the importance of the functionality, the Wix Code. That is the meat of this whole entire series. However, with that in mind, obviously, to make elements work a certain way, you have to connect them with functionality. So you're going to see an incorporation between the two, but like for instance, right now, I'm not going to show you like myself designing the home page. I will save that for a next portion, maybe even a filler video somewhere in midweek. I'll throw out, okay, here's the homepage design, but I'm only going to show you setting up the databases right now. So, this leads me to my next point. To set up databases in Wix Code, we have to activate the developer tools. And then we have our properties panel over here. We're not going to worry about this guy right now. In fact, we're even going to X him out. And then we have our page code or our code manager, code handler down here at the bottom of the page. I'm going to minimize that little guy. And then over here to the left, we have our site structure. If you do want to minimize the site structure at any point, you just press this little arrow and it'll minimize, and to bring it back out, you press the arrow again. So we see over here on the site structure, pages, public, backend, database. Public and backend, these are for two different types of code to call APIs, stuff like that. Oh, of course, we've got a little update coming in here. Nope, not today. So that's for that. We're not going to focus on that aspect right now, but what we are going to focus on is we're going to focus on this database section. So we identified in the previous video that we need a couple of databases. One, we need at least a database for profile pages to collect user information, store user information, and allow that information to be edited or deleted. So we need one for profile pages. We need a second database for people to post statuses and images. Again, usually images with their status. That's going to have its own database. We're going to have a database for our commenting system. We may use some reference fields in this portion, but we are going to need a database for this. And then we're also for sure going to need a database for the peer-to-peer messaging. Now, the peer-to-peer messaging, I am not going to show you the setup of the database in this video because, like I told you in the previous portion, that is going to be a whole, part of this series by itself. The peer-to-peer messaging is probably going to be an addition to the series. It's going to be the last thing we do, tying everything back together. So we're going to build everything out. Again, this light version of Twitter, and then that peer-to-peer messaging, direct messaging, will be the last portion we work on. So in this video, what we're really going to set up is we're going to set up the database for profile pages and statuses, because that will connect to what series we're doing next, what part of the series we're doing next, which is the dynamic pages along with database fields. So let's do that. Let's set up the database first for profile pages. So this will be user information. So to set up a database, we're going to go click Add a New Collection. When we do that, we'll see this nice little introducing database collections. Then we press Start Creating. This is where we name our database. So I'm going to name, and here's a big portion of this, guys. When you're naming databases for whatever project you're working on, because I understand some of you may not be building a social network, but you're building a similar type of concept, make sure you keep everything organized and clearly named and marked. It's going to help you when designing, especially for these more advanced, complex websites. So for these, I'm going to name it Profile. I'm going to name it User Profile Data. User profile data. That is pretty self-explanatory. I know that it's the user's data and it's going to be for their profile. Keep it clean, keep it concise. What's this database collection for? I'm going to scroll down and we're going to use custom use. There's going to be pretty much all custom use databases in this tutorial, in this whole series. So now we're going to go to set up custom permissions. What this means is we're going to set the permissions of this database. So when we do that, we have a couple different options. Set permission roles. So the first one reads, who can read the content from this collection? Well, remember, this is the user's profile page. And when you're on a social network or social media, you're always able to click on someone's profile page and read it, right? So that means anyone. The answer to this question is anyone, okay? So we want this to be anyone. Any site visitor could come on and read someone's profile. That's step one. Step two, who can create content for this collection? Well, we only want the site member author, well, in this case, the site member to create the content for their collection, for their page. We want that site member to be able to upload their own information for their profile page, which leads us down to our next two. Who can update content from this collection? Well, we see a new option here. We see site member author. So this means, and this is who we're going to select, the registered user who can modify their own content. So if the site member created and updated the information in their profile page, the site member author, that same person that added that information, is the only one who can update it. And we're going to select the same thing for the same person who can delete it. So the site member author is the one who can delete that content from their collection. Once we do that, what we're going to do is we're simply going to press set and create collection. And then just like that, our user profile data database is created. Once again, I'm not going to show you the building out of the fields in this portion of the series. That is going to be in next week's portion, which is going to be database fields in dynamic pages. So we've got the user profile data database complete. Somewhat. We've got it started, I should say. Now, we want to create a database for statuses. So this is the database that's going to hold all the information of where people post statuses. So we're going to go back to database, and now we can click this little plus button over to the right to add a new one. New collection. And we have to name this one. For this one, I'm going to name this user statuses. Pretty simple. We know that this database is user statuses. The user is going to post their status updates, their posts. They're going to post to this database. This is where the information is going to be stored. This is where it's going to be held. And we're going to also choose custom use on this. And then we're going to go back, set up custom permissions yet again. So who can read content from this collection? Well, once again, if we're on a website, a social media website, it's not just the site member that can read their author, can read their content or other people's content. It's anyone. So we're going to select anyone on here. Who can create content for this collection? Well, once again, the site member, because the person has to be registered in order to create content. So the person has to have an account with our website in order to post statuses, in order to build their profile page. Just like the profile pages, we want the site member author to be the one that's able to edit or change the information in their status post. The next is who can delete it. Once again, we want the site member author to be the one to be able to delete their post if they so choose. And then we're simply going to click set and create collection. And just like that, we now have our user profile data and our user status data. Like I said, the other for sure databases that we know are the commenting system and the peer-to-peer messaging system. So I'm not going to show you the commenting system database setup in this either, because what we're going to do is we're going to get to the commenting system in part 4 of this series, which will follow the next series, which is dynamic pages and database field creation. So part 4 will contain commenting and liking, and that's when we'll get into those databases and that code, so that way we can arrange that properly. I'm trying to take you through a very strict and polished sequence in this series because it's going to help you stay on top of creating this type of website. So guys, that is it for part 2 of building a social network in Wix, the non-coding founders or co-founders guide. If this video helped you out and you enjoyed it, drop a like down below. Comment if you've got any questions or if you're enjoying the series. Guys, I really want to hear your feedback for this. It's very important to me because I'm trying to continue on this very good series that I feel is going to be very helpful for you. And then also, it's going to give me a good read on if I should create a series like this again for a different style website. You know, how to build an online marketplace, how to build a real estate style website, like an Airbnb type website, those type of things. So I really need to get your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe here on Computer MD Gilbert. And the final thing I'm going to ask you to do is head over. I just rebranded everything for this entire new fresh start, I guess you can call it, to WixTrainingAcademy.com. Guys, this is the previous WixMyWebsite.com, and it is now an online training resource. I have lots of blog content, podcasts, getting started. I've got if we come here to getting started here, I've got a Facebook group, a free Facebook group that you guys can join. I will throw the link in the description. A free Wix website roadmap. It's a 12-step roadmap to get you started in building your website. I've got my podcast, and most importantly, the final aspect of this that I launched, this is a personal passion project that I've been working on, is the Academy, guys. This is really exciting. So in this Academy, it's called the Wix Training Academy. If we scroll down here, I'll show you what you get access to. So you get an extensive training library full of courses, workshops, webinars. You've got a result-driven community of other like-minded entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs in there in the Academy at the moment. We've got checklists, apps, reviews, member-only discounts, and plus we've got a monthly mastermind / Q&A call with me every single month to answer any questions you may have. This Wix Training Academy is the real deal. So if you're looking to exponentially grow your knowledge on Wix and upskill yourself on Wix, come check this out. Guys, I really appreciate all of your support. This is amazing. I'm so excited to be putting on this series. It's been a process for sure. It's been in the works for a while, but I finally got to the point where Wix is ready for everything that I'm teaching right now, and I've got this academy built out, so the timing couldn't be better. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will catch you on part 3 next week.